The late afternoon sun painted the streets of Riverton in hues of orange and fading gold. People hurried along the cracked sidewalks, heading home from long shifts at the factory, at the grocery store, or at the construction sites that kept the town alive. Sirens were faint in the distance, echoing against old brick buildings, but this block, East Haven Avenue, was quiet. At the corner stood a man in worn shoes and a simple brown jacket. His name was Darius Cole, a black man in his late 30s. His jacket had frayed edges, and his jeans bore the stains of work and long days. To anyone walking by, he looked like just another working-class man waiting on the bus after a day of labor. But to those who really watched him, there was something about the way he stood, upright, composed, his gaze sharp and thoughtful. He wasn't what he seemed. Darius had recently returned to Riverton after years away, carrying with him both secrets and responsibilities. But for now, as he clutched a worn leather satchel with papers inside, he looked like a man trying to make ends meet. And that's when trouble began. A police cruiser rolled slowly down East Haven, its tires crunching over bits of gravel. Behind the wheel was Officer Raymond Haskins, a young white cop with a square jaw, pressed uniform, and an energy that screamed arrogance. He had only been on the force for 3 years, but already he carried himself like he owned the streets. His eyes narrowed when he spotted Darius. "Another loiterer," he muttered, tapping his steering wheel. He flicked on his lights. No siren, just the glare of red and blue bouncing off shop windows. Pedestrians slowed their steps. A few shook their heads. Everyone in Riverton knew Haskins was the type of officer who looked for problems where there were none. He stepped out of the car, adjusting his belt with a loud snap of the buckle. "Hey, you there?" he barked. "What are you doing on this corner?" Darius turned slowly, his expression calm. "I'm waiting for the bus." Haskins smirked. "Sure you are. You got ID on you?" Darius sighed quietly. He didn't like being challenged like this, not for simply standing on public property. But he had dealt with this kind of energy before. "Yes, I do." "Is there a reason you're asking?" The officer's chest puffed. "Because I don't recognize you and you're standing around looking suspicious. Now let's see that ID." Darius reached for his wallet carefully, deliberate in every movement. He had learned long ago never to make sudden gestures around cops who already looked at him with suspicion. But the way Haskins' hand hovered near his holster made it clear. The man wasn't interested in courtesy. The ID was in the wallet, but before Darius could fully present it, Haskins grabbed his wrist. "That's enough. Hands behind your back." "What? For what reason?" Darius asked, his voice firm but calm. "Loitering. Possible trespassing. And we'll figure out the rest at the station." Haskins snapped the cold steel of handcuffs around his wrists. The small crowd that had gathered murmured in disbelief. A woman in a headscarf shook her head, whispering, "That man wasn't doing nothing." An older man muttered, "Haskins just likes making examples out of folks." Darius didn't resist. He kept his shoulders squared, his eyes unflinching. But inside, anger churned. Not because he was being arrested, but because of what Haskins didn't know. In the back of the cruiser, Darius stared out the window at streets that had changed and yet stayed the same since he'd left. Riverton had always been a place of contradictions, hard-working families, tight communities, but also an undercurrent of injustice, a system stacked against people like him. Haskins whistled smugly as he drove, glancing in the rearview mirror. "So what's your deal? You hanging around casing shops? Waiting to score something?" Darius's voice was low but steady. "I told you. I was waiting for the bus. And I had ID ready to show you." Yeah, Haskins said with a chuckle. "That's what they all say. Don't worry, you'll get processed, maybe fined, maybe worse depending on what we find. You people need to learn respect." Darius's jaw tightened. He knew exactly what "you people" meant. He turned his gaze back to the window, choosing silence over escalation. The police station buzzed with activity. Phones rang, officers moved in and out, papers shuffled. Haskins dragged Darius through the front doors like a prize catch. "Pick this one up loitering on East Haven," Haskins announced loudly to the front desk clerk, a young woman typing on her computer. Her eyes flicked up, scanning Darius. Something in her look lingered, like she recognized him but couldn't quite place it. I'll book him?" she asked hesitantly. "That's the plan," Haskins said, grinning as he tugged Darius toward the holding area. But before they could get far, the glass doors of the station swung open. In walked 3 senior officers, followed by the deputy mayor of Riverton. The room went still. Because behind them came a man in a dark tailored suit, polished shoes, and the kind of presence that drew every eye. It was Darius, uncuffed, unbroken, stepping forward with a quiet authority. Gasps filled the lobby. The deputy mayor raised his hand proudly. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce you to Riverton's newly appointed police chief, Chief Darius Cole. The words hit the air like thunder. The desk clerk's jaw dropped. Officers froze mid-step. And Officer Haskins? He went pale, his grip on the cuffs slackening until they clinked uselessly. Darius slowly turned his head, eyes locking on Haskins with a gaze sharp enough to cut glass. Is this how you welcome your new chief? He asked, his tone calm but heavy with weight. Haskins stammered, I didn't know. You were dressed. Like a man on his way to catch a bus? Darius interrupted. Like someone who works hard like the citizens you're sworn to protect? Tell me, Officer Haskins, is that how you decide who deserves to be treated with respect? The lobby was silent except for the hum of fluorescent lights. Every officer's eyes were on Haskins, whose arrogance had drained away, leaving only panic. But Darius wasn't finished. He looked around the room, taking in every face. Riverton has had a problem for a long time. A problem of who gets seen, who gets heard, and who gets silenced. That problem ends now. Starting today. The deputy mayor nodded firmly. Chief Cole will be taking full command immediately. We expect every officer to extend him their respect and cooperation. Darius stepped closer to Haskins, lowering his voice so only he could hear. Your career just took a turn you didn't expect. Be very careful with your next move. The room buzzed again, officers whispering, unsure of what this new leadership would mean. Some faces showed relief. Others, resentment. And then, just as the tension seemed to peak, a man stepped out from the back hallway. He was tall, with graying hair and a scar across his cheek. His uniform bore the rank of deputy chief, and his eyes narrowed the moment they landed on Darius. Well, the man drawled, his voice carrying a mix of disdain and challenge, looks like the city's gone and given us a new boss. Let's see if he lasts longer than the last one. The lobby went silent again. Officers exchanged uneasy glances. Darius stood tall, but inside he knew, this was only the beginning. Because Riverton wasn't just a town with bad cops. It was a system with deep roots, and the fight he had just stepped into was going to test him in ways he couldn't yet imagine. The lobby of Riverton Police Headquarters still hummed with shock. Just moments ago, a man everyone assumed to be a poor loiterer was revealed to be the city's newly appointed police chief. Now, every officer's eyes darted between Darius Cole, the black man standing tall in his crisp suit, and the scarred deputy chief who had just stepped forward, his words dripping with challenge. Deputy Chief Franklin Morrow was a man carved by years in the system. His gray hair was cropped short, his jaw clenched tight, and the long scar across his cheek gave him a permanent look of severity. He had been with Riverton PD for nearly 3 decades. Many whispered that nothing happened in the department without Morrow knowing about it. He had survived 3 different chiefs. And now, his glare at Darius said only one thing. I don't intend to make you the 4th. Darius didn't flinch. His posture was calm, his tone even, but his words cut through the tension. Deputy Chief Morrow, he said, his deep voice steady. I've read your file. 30 years of service, commendations for bravery, a record of dedication. That kind of experience should be an asset to this department. I intend to work with every man and woman here, but let's make one thing clear from the start. I won't be intimidated. The words hung heavy. Officers exchanged quick glances. Some looked impressed. Others wary. Haskins, the young officer who had cuffed Darius earlier, stood frozen in the corner, wishing the floor would swallow him whole. Morrow smirked, folding his arms. You talk a good game, Chief. Let's see if your actions can match. Before the tension could escalate, the deputy mayor clapped his hands once. Gentlemen, let's take this into the conference room. There are things the chief needs to know. Darius gave a small nod, then turned to the gathered officers. I'll address the department formally tomorrow morning. For tonight, do your jobs with integrity. His eyes landed briefly on Haskins. A warning. A promise. Then he followed the mayor and Morrow into the conference room. The long oak table stretched across the room, polished to a gleam. Darius took a seat at the head, the mayor to his right, Morrow across from him. The mayor adjusted his tie. Chief Cole, you were chosen for Riverton because of your record. You turned around the community policing program in Eastbrook. You cut complaints against officers by nearly half in just 2 years. We believe you can do the same here. Darius leaned forward. Then let me start with this. Riverton doesn't have a problem with policing alone. It has a problem with culture. A problem of respect. Officers who think a man waiting for a bus is automatically a criminal. That's what I experienced today firsthand. Morrow's lips tightened. One officer's mistake doesn't define the whole department. Darius's gaze didn't waver. Then tell me why community complaints have doubled in the past 5 years. Why residents describe Riverton PD as more of an occupying force than a protector. This isn't about one officer. It's about the entire approach. The mayor cleared his throat, trying to cool the air. Chief Cole, Deputy Chief Morrow will be your second in command. He knows the department's inner workings. You'll need his cooperation. Darius nodded slowly. I'll need his honesty too. Their eyes locked again, a silent battle of wills. After the meeting, Darius asked to tour the building. He wanted to see Riverton PD through his own eyes, not just files and reports. The halls smelled faintly of old coffee and ink. Posters about community policing curled at the edges. Officers watched as Darius passed, some with curiosity, some with open skepticism. He stopped at the bullpen where younger officers typed reports and answered phones. Conversations hushed. He introduced himself, shaking hands firmly. Some responded warmly. Others offered little more than a nod. When he reached Officer Haskins's desk, the young cop looked up nervously. "Officer," Darius said evenly, "we'll have a private conversation soon. For now, do your job." "Yes, Chief," Haskins said quickly, his face flushed. Darius walked on. Later that night, Darius stood outside the station, breathing in the cool air. The city stretched before him, rows of old houses, neon-lit shops, the hum of traffic. Riverton was waiting, watching. Word of his appointment would spread fast. From across the street, a group of residents had gathered. Some clapped when they saw him. Others simply watched with cautious hope. A woman stepped forward, her voice carrying. "Chief Cole," she called. "We've been waiting a long time for someone like you. Please don't forget us." Her words struck him deeply. He lifted a hand in acknowledgement. "I won't," he promised. But even as he spoke, he felt the weight of what was ahead. The morning sun streamed into the station lobby as officers gathered for the formal introduction. The room was packed, uniformed men and women, detectives, clerks, even janitors. Darius stepped up to the podium, his suit pressed, his eyes sharp. He spoke with conviction. "I didn't come to Riverton to wear a title. I came to do a job. And that job is to rebuild trust between this department and the people we serve. That means accountability. That means respect. That means no one, not even an officer, is above the law. If you can't stand by those values, you don't belong in this uniform." The room was silent. Then scattered applause. A few claps turned into more. But in the back, Morrow's face remained stone. Darius continued. "I'm not here to tear down. I'm here to build. And I expect every one of you to build with me." It was a speech that drew both admiration and unease. Behind closed doors, whispers began. "This new chief thinks he's going to change everything overnight? He doesn't know Riverton. He doesn't know how things work here. Watch, he'll be gone in 6 months." And in Morrow's office, a private meeting unfolded. Morrow sat with 2 veteran sergeants, their arms crossed. "Cole's got big ideas," he said slowly. "But big ideas don't survive long in Riverton. We've kept this department running for decades. We don't need an outsider telling us how to do our jobs." One sergeant leaned in. "What's the plan?" Morrow's scarred face hardened. "We watch him. We wait. And when he makes his first mistake, we'll be ready." 2 days later the call came. A local grocery store accused a young black teenager of shoplifting. The boy swore he had only bought a soda and some chips. The store owner insisted otherwise. Tension built quickly. Neighbors gathered outside, angry at yet another accusation that smelled of profiling. Darius decided to handle it personally. He arrived at the store in plain clothes, walking into a storm of voices. "Chief Cole," someone shouted. "They're trying to frame him." Inside, the boy sat in tears, handcuffed to a chair. The store owner, a middle-aged man with a red face, shouted at him. He was stuffing candy in his pockets. "I saw it." Darius raised a hand. "Enough." Everyone calmed down. He crouched beside the boy. "Son, what's your name?" "Tyrell," the boy whispered. "Did you take anything without paying?" "No, sir. I swear." "Check the cameras." Darius stood. "Where are the cameras?" The store owner hesitated, then gestured. "Back room." They rolled the footage. It showed Tyrell picking up a soda and chips, paying at the counter and walking out. No candy. No theft. The crowd outside erupted when Darius emerged with Tyrell, uncuffed and vindicated. "Chief Cole handled it right," someone yelled. But across the street, Morrow watched from a cruiser, his face unreadable. That night, as Darius walked to his car, a folded note was tucked under the windshield wiper. He opened it. "You're making enemies fast. Watch your back. A friend." Darius scanned the dark parking lot. No one in sight. The warning wasn't lost on him. Later, back in his small apartment, Darius poured himself a glass of water and set his satchel on the table. He pulled out documents he had been studying, internal audits of the Riverton police budget. Numbers didn't add up. Funds earmarked for community programs had vanished. Equipment costs were inflated. Millions unaccounted for. His phone buzzed. A blocked number. He answered. A low voice spoke. "Chief Cole. If you keep digging, you'll find more than you can handle. Some things are better left buried." The line went dead. Darius sat in the silence, the papers spread before him, the warning echoing in his mind. He knew now, the corruption wasn't just cultural. It was financial. And whoever was behind it had just marked him as a threat. This was bigger than he thought. Much bigger. The papers on Darius Cole's kitchen table looked ordinary at first glance. Line items, budgets, supply orders, community grants. But the deeper he went, the more glaring the irregularities became. Tens of thousands of dollars supposedly spent on youth mentorship programs, yet none of the community centers reported ever seeing those funds. Inflated costs for uniforms and vehicle maintenance, numbers that didn't make sense. In total, over $2 million had simply vanished over the past 3 years. Darius leaned back in his chair, rubbing his temples. His instincts told him this wasn't sloppy bookkeeping. It was deliberate. Someone high up was funneling money away, and if history had taught him anything, the corruption likely ran deeper than the numbers on a page. But the phone call from the anonymous friend replayed in his mind. "If you keep digging, you'll find more than you can handle." Darius knew 2 things. Whoever left that warning was close enough to know what he was working on, and they wanted him afraid. He wasn't. But he was cautious. The next morning, the mood in the station was different. Darius noticed it the moment he walked in. Conversations hushed when he entered the bullpen. Officers' eyes followed him, some with curiosity, others with suspicion, and a few with outright disdain. He greeted them calmly, nodding, shaking hands with those who extended theirs. But he knew what was happening. His decision to clear young Tyrell at the grocery store had sent ripples through Riverton. The community had cheered him, but some of the rank-and-file officers whispered that he had sided with the civilians over his own. In the corner, Officer Raymond Haskins kept his head down, typing furiously. He hadn't fully recovered from the humiliation of arresting the man who turned out to be his chief. Every time their eyes met, he looked away quickly. Darius headed to his office, but Deputy Chief Franklin Morrow was already waiting inside. Arms crossed, scar catching the fluorescent light, Morrow looked every bit the watchdog. "We need to talk," Morrow said flatly. Darius closed the door behind him. "Go ahead." Morrow threw a file onto the desk. "You embarrassed this department yesterday. Marching that kid out of the store like you were some kind of hero. That kind of thing makes us look weak." Darius opened the file, glancing at the staged report that painted Tyrell as a belligerent suspect. He slid it back toward Morrow. "What makes us look weak is false arrest. What makes us look weak is failing the people we're supposed to serve." Morrow's jaw tightened. "These officers need to know you've got their backs. If you keep siding with civilians over your own men, you're going to lose this department before you even start." Darius leaned forward, locking eyes with him. "I'll always back up my officers, when they're in the right. But if they abuse their power, if they lie, if they treat citizens like criminals for no reason, they will answer for it. That's my promise." For a long moment, neither man moved. The tension was sharp, electric. Finally, Morrow smirked. "Then you'd better get used to being very unpopular, Chief." He pushed off the desk and left, the door slamming behind him. By midday, rumors spread through the building. Some officers muttered that the chief was too soft. Others said he wasn't one of them. But just as many whispered that maybe, just maybe, things were about to change for the better. In the break room, a young Latina officer named Rosa Delgado spoke up to a small group. "You all saw the video from that grocery store. The kid was innocent. Chief Cole did the right thing. I'm glad he's here." A veteran officer snorted. "You'll change your tune once he turns on you." But Rosa wasn't backing down. "No. I think he means what he says. And maybe that scares some people." The room fell silent, everyone knowing she was indirectly pointing at Morrow's faction of loyalists. That evening, Darius held his first public forum at the Riverton Community Center. Word had spread quickly. The gymnasium was packed, residents standing shoulder to shoulder, elders in folding chairs, teenagers leaning against the walls. When Darius walked in, the room erupted in applause. He raised his hand humbly. "Thank you. Please sit." He spoke clearly, his deep voice carrying, "I know trust between this community and this department has been broken. I won't pretend I can fix it overnight. But I will tell you this. My door is open. If you've been wronged, if you've been ignored, I want to hear your stories. This department will answer for its actions. And together we can rebuild what was lost." Hands shot up. A mother spoke about her son being stopped repeatedly on his way home from school. An elderly man recounted an officer entering his home without a warrant. Teenagers told stories of being harassed for looking suspicious. Darius listened intently, writing notes, asking questions. His presence, calm, respectful, patient, won the crowd. But he also felt the weight of their pain pressing on him. These weren't isolated incidents. This was a pattern. As the meeting ended, a young man in a hoodie approached quietly. "Chief Cole, I know something about the department's money. You should be careful who you trust." Before Darius could ask more, the man slipped into the crowd and vanished. Back in his apartment, Darius couldn't shake the words. He spread the budget papers across the table again, highlighting the most suspicious entries. He needed proof, hard evidence that funds were being stolen. But who could he trust inside the department? His phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. "Stop digging or you'll regret it." He stared at the screen, his jaw tightening. Whoever was behind this wasn't subtle anymore. The next morning, chaos erupted in the station. Someone had leaked a story to the local paper. "New chief undermines officers, chooses criminals over cops." The article was full of half-truths and outright lies, painting Darius as a radical who cared more about civilians than his own department. It quoted anonymous officers saying morale was at an all-time low. Copies of the paper were spread across desks. Some officers smirked when Darius walked in. Others avoided his gaze. He stood tall. "If anyone here thinks leaking lies to the press will scare me off, you're mistaken," he said loudly enough for the bullpen to hear. "I came here to fix this department. And I'm not going anywhere." But inside, he knew the battle lines were being drawn. Later, Officer Rosa Delgado knocked on his office door. "Chief, you should know. Some of the older guys, the ones who follow Morrow, they're not just talking. They're planning. I overheard them in the locker room. They want to make you slip up. Something about setting you up on a bad call." Darius nodded slowly. "Thank you, Officer Delgado. That took courage." She hesitated. "Just be careful. They won't play fair." That evening, as Darius prepared to leave, dispatch called in a code, a disturbance at an abandoned warehouse on the south side. Reports of shouting, possible weapons. Morrow himself was leading the response. Darius grabbed his jacket. If Morrow was on scene, he wanted eyes there too. The warehouse loomed in the dark, its windows shattered, graffiti covering the walls. Squad cars surrounded it, lights flashing. Officers milled about, but strangely no one seemed to be moving inside. Darius approached. "What's the situation?" Morrow smirked faintly. "Anonymous tip. Said there was a gang meeting in there. Could be dangerous." Darius scanned the area. It felt wrong. Too quiet. Too staged. "I'll go in," Darius said firmly. Morrow's brow lifted. "Chief, that's not standard procedure." "Exactly. Which is why I'll see for myself." The warehouse was dark, the air thick with dust. Darius moved carefully, flashlight cutting through shadows. But there was no sound. No shouting. No gang members. Just empty crates and the echo of his own footsteps. Then he saw it, a duffel bag in the corner. He opened it. Inside were stacks of cash. Dozens of bundles. Easily hundreds of thousands of dollars. His breath caught. This wasn't a gang hideout. This was a stash. Footsteps echoed behind him. He turned. Morrow stood in the doorway, flanked by two loyal sergeants. His scarred face twisted into a grin. Well, look at this. Our new chief caught red-handed with dirty money." The sergeant stepped forward, cameras in hand, snapping photos. "This is checkmate, Cole," Morrow said coldly. "By tomorrow morning, every paper in Riverton will say the same thing, that the great reformer Chief Cole is just another crooked cop." Darius's heart pounded. He knew this was the setup Rosa had warned him about. They wanted to frame him, bury him before he could expose their corruption. But he also knew something they didn't. He wasn't alone. His satchel, left in the patrol car, held a small body cam he'd been wearing since entering the warehouse, recording every second. He just had to play this right. Morrow stepped closer, smirking. "So, Chief, what's it gonna be? Walk out of here quietly, or go down hard?" The flashlight beam flickered against the stacks of stolen money. The trap was set. The walls were closing in. And Darius knew, his next move would decide whether he lived to fight this battle, or whether Riverton swallowed him whole. The beam of Darius Cole's flashlight quivered slightly, catching every dust mote as it hung in the stale air of the warehouse. His pulse thundered in his ears, but his expression remained calm, controlled. He knew better than to let Franklin Morrow see fear. The deputy chief's smirk widened as his two loyal sergeants snapped photo after photo. Each camera flash briefly illuminated the duffel bag stuffed with cash, making it look like a crime scene exhibit ready for the front page. "Well?" Morrow drawled. "Care to explain why our righteous chief is hiding out in a warehouse with dirty money? The people are gonna love this." Darius adjusted his stance, letting the silence stretch. Every second gave his hidden body cam more time to record. He finally said, steady as stone. "Funny thing, Franklin. I walked in here alone. And yet somehow this bag was waiting for me." Morrow's grin faltered just slightly. "Don't try to spin this." "Oh, I'm not spinning it," Darius replied coolly. "I'm documenting it. Every word, every move. You brought me here. You set this up. And the whole city's going to see it." For the first time, Morrow's eyes flickered with unease. He gestured to his men. "Search him." The sergeant stepped forward, but Darius raised a hand. "Careful, officers. Bodycams don't lie. And mine's been on since I arrived." Both men froze. Morrow's face darkened. "You think one video will save you? You're a stranger in this department. I've been here 20 years. Who do you think they'll believe?" Darius let the faintest smile curl his lips. "That's the thing, Franklin. I'm not asking them to believe me. I'm asking them to believe their own eyes." The words hung in the air like a loaded gun. Hours later, the warehouse still smelled of betrayal in Darius's nostrils as he sat in his office. The duffel bag of cash was now sealed as evidence. Morrow had fought tooth and nail to prevent it, but Darius had insisted. He had turned over his body cam footage to internal affairs immediately. The video showed everything: the emptiness of the warehouse when he first entered, the sudden arrival of Morrow and his men, and their attempt to frame him. But Darius knew evidence wasn't enough. Corruption this deep meant there were allies protecting Morrow. And already, whispers were spreading that the chief himself had staged the recording to save his skin. A knock on the door. Rosa Delgado stepped in, concern etched on her face. "Chief, they're saying all kinds of things. That you planted the camera later, that you knew where the money was. Morrow's people are twisting it." Darius nodded grimly. "I expected that. What matters now is building a chain of truth they can't break." Rosa hesitated. "Can I ask you something? Why risk everything by going in there yourself?" He leaned back, eyes distant. "Because leaders can't send others into traps they're unwilling to face. And because if I let them scare me off once, they'll own me forever." Rosa studied him a moment, then said softly, "I've got your back. Whatever they try next." The following day, Darius was summoned to City Hall. The mayor, Evelyn Grant, was a sharp-eyed woman with a reputation for balancing politics like a chessboard. She wasted no time once Darius sat down. "This warehouse fiasco has the city buzzing," she said briskly. "Half the council thinks you're a crusader. The other half thinks you're a liability. And the police union is breathing down my neck." Darius held her gaze. "With respect, Madam Mayor, what happened wasn't a fiasco. It was a revelation. Your deputy chief tried to frame your new chief of police. That should terrify you more than a few bad headlines." Mayor Grant tapped her pen against her desk. "What terrifies me, Chief Cole, is instability. Riverton has enough problems without a civil war inside its police force." "I don't want war," Darius said firmly. "I want justice. If corruption is eating this department alive, we can't ignore it. Or it'll rot everything from the inside." Grant studied him, then leaned back. "I'll give you room to work. But if this city burns because of infighting, it'll be your head, not mine." Back at headquarters, the division was clearer than ever. Two camps had formed, those rallying behind Morrow and those cautiously inspired by Darius. In the locker room, tempers flared. "The chief's making us look like fools," barked one of Morrow's allies. "And what about Morrow setting him up?" Rosa shot back. "Doesn't that make you look like fools for following him?" Shoves were exchanged before others pulled them apart. The department wasn't just split, it was on the verge of tearing itself apart. Darius watched it all quietly from the doorway. He knew this was the cost of standing his ground. But he also knew he couldn't let the division spiral unchecked. That night, he addressed the entire force in the briefing room. "You want to know who I am?" he began, voice steady. I'm a man who grew up on the other side of those squad car windows. I know what it's like to be doubted, dismissed, disrespected. And I also know what this badge should mean. If you wear it, you serve every person in this city, not just the ones who look like you, not just the ones who agree with you. Every person. If that makes me unpopular, so be it. If that makes me your enemy, then maybe you've forgotten why you became an officer in the first place. Silence followed. Some nodded slowly. Others glared. But the line had been drawn. Meanwhile, the warehouse story spilled into the streets. Protesters gathered outside the station, some holding signs, "We stand with Chief Cole, clean out the corruption." Local media swarmed, hungry for sound bites. Darius addressed them carefully. This isn't about me. It's about accountability. No one is above the law, not even those sworn to uphold it. But not everyone was supportive. A counter-protest formed across the street, chanting, "Back the blue, not the new." They accused Darius of betraying his officers. The city was split, and the tension crackled like a storm waiting to break. Late one evening, Darius received another anonymous envelope slipped under his office door. Inside were photographs, grainy surveillance shots of him meeting with community leaders, edited to make it look like secret dealings. Alongside was a typed note, "Resign now or these go public." Darius exhaled slowly. Morrow was getting desperate. But blackmail only confirmed his guilt. He placed the photos in an evidence bag, then called Rosa. "I need you to start digging into Morrow's finances. Quietly. He's hiding something bigger than cash in a warehouse." Rosa nodded. "Consider it done." A week later, as Darius left the station, the same hooded young man who'd warned him at the community meeting appeared again. "You're in deep, Chief," the man whispered urgently. "Morrow's not working alone. There's a whole network tied to that missing money, businessmen, politicians. If you pull too hard, the whole city could unravel." "Then why tell me?" Darius asked. "Because Riverton deserves better. And you're the first chief I've seen who might actually fight." Before Darius could press further, the man vanished into the night. Internal Affairs called Darius in for questioning soon after. Though his body cam footage was strong, Morrow's influence was stronger. The investigators grilled him for hours, hinting that maybe he had orchestrated the entire scene for publicity. Walking out of the meeting, Rosa caught up to him, pale and shaken. "Chief, I found something. Bank records. Morrow's been moving huge amounts of money through shell accounts. And it matches the missing funds from the budget." Darius's eyes hardened. That's it. That's the crack in his armor. But before they could act, alarms blared through the station. Officers scrambled, shouting. "What's happening?" Darius demanded. A sergeant rushed past. "Emergency call. Shots fired at the mayor's car downtown." Darius froze. Mayor Evelyn Grant, his most tenuous political ally, was under attack. If she fell, Morrow's grip on the city would tighten like a vice. He sprinted toward his cruiser, Rosa close behind. The night air was alive with sirens, red and blue lights slicing through darkness. As they rounded the corner, Darius's heart sank. The mayor's black sedan was riddled with shattered glass, smoke curling from the hood. Officers swarmed, but the mayor was nowhere in sight. And in the distance, just barely visible under the streetlights, a shadowy figure watched the chaos unfold, before slipping into an alley and disappearing. Darius's gut told him this was no random attack. This was part of the war for Riverton's soul. And now the mayor's life, and the city's future, hung in the balance. The shriek of sirens still echoed through downtown Riverton as Darius Cole pushed his way through the knot of officers surrounding the smoking sedan. Glass crunched under his shoes, the smell of gasoline stung his nose. He scanned the scene, heart hammering. "Where's the mayor?" he barked. No answer came. Just a dozen confused faces and the muffled static of radios. Rosa Delgado appeared at his shoulder, wide-eyed. "She's gone. Witnesses say they saw masked men pull her out of the car. It wasn't a drive-by, Chief. It was a coordinated abduction." Darius clenched his fists. Abduction. Bold, ruthless, and politically catastrophic. By dawn, the news had spread like wildfire. Mayor Grant kidnapped in downtown attack. Anchors speculated wildly, while commentators questioned Riverton's leadership. Inside headquarters, the pressure cooker boiled over. Officers looked to Darius for direction, but many whispered he was in over his head. Deputy Chief Morrow seized the moment. Standing before the press, he declared, "This is what happens when leadership is weak. Riverton needs strength, not speeches. If Chief Cole can't protect the mayor herself, how can he protect this city?" The words landed like daggers. Darius, watching from his office, felt the weight of every doubt pressing down. But Rosa entered with fire in her eyes. He's playing you, Chief. He's using this crisis to paint you as incompetent. But think about it, who benefits from the mayor disappearing? Who gains power if she's out of the picture? Darius's jaw tightened. Morrow. Determined not to lose momentum, Darius assembled a small team of trusted officers, Rosa, Sergeant Malik Johnson and rookie officer Tasha Green. We keep this off official channels, Darius told them. If Morrow's involved, the moment he knows we're digging, the trail goes cold. We work quiet. We work fast. Malik frowned. Chief, going off the grid could backfire. If we're caught. Then I'll take the heat, Darius said. But the mayor's life comes first. Their first lead came from a street vendor who'd been near the scene. Trembling, he told them. I saw the men. Black SUV, tinted windows. License plate was covered, but they drove south toward the docks. The docks. A labyrinth of warehouses, most under the quiet control of Riverton's most powerful businessmen. While Darius and Malik scouted the docks, Rosa buried herself in financial records. Late into the night, with only the glow of her laptop for company, she pieced together a chilling puzzle. Dozens of shell companies, all funneling money through offshore accounts. And at the center of it, Franklin Morrow. But he wasn't acting alone. A half-dozen local businessmen, contractors, shipping magnates, even a city councilman, were all tied to the network. When Rosa presented her findings to Darius, he felt his stomach drop. This isn't just about dirty money, he muttered. This is a syndicate. A whole machine feeding off Riverton. And the mayor, she must have been getting too close. Rosa nodded grimly. If we don't get her back, they'll bury her truth with her. Knowing they couldn't storm the docks without backup, Darius came up with a dangerous plan. We feed Morrow false intel, he explained. We leak word that we've found where the mayor is being held. He'll scramble to cover his tracks. And when he does, we follow him. It was a gamble, but Rosa agreed. If it flushes him out, it's worth it. So the next day, whispers spread through the department. Chief Cole had a solid lead on the mayor's location. Predictably, within hours, Morrow slipped out of headquarters under the pretense of meeting with federal contacts. But Darius and his team were on his tail. Night fell heavy over the Riverton docks. Fog curled off the river, cloaking rows of rusted warehouses in ghostly haze. Darius parked his unmarked car a block away, motioning for silence as he, Rosa, Malik and Tasha crept closer. They spotted Morrow's SUV outside a warehouse with boarded-up windows. 2 armed men stood guard. Rosa whispered, "This is it." Through a crack in the wall, they glimpsed a chilling sight. Mayor Grant, bound to a chair, her face bruised but defiant. Morrow paced before her, his voice low but venomous. "You should have stayed quiet, Evelyn," he hissed. "But don't worry. Once the city sees you resign, voluntarily of course, everything will fall into place." Darius's blood boiled. He motioned for Rosa to keep recording with her phone. This was the evidence they needed. But then a creak. Tasha had stepped on a loose plank. The guards whipped around, guns raised. "Hey, who's out there?" Chaos erupted. Darius shoved his team back toward the shadows. Shots cracked into the night, warning bursts not aimed to kill but enough to scatter them. "Go, go!" Darius hissed, leading them through the maze of crates. They barely made it back to the car, hearts pounding. From a distance, they watched as Morrow stormed outside, barking orders. "He knows someone's onto him now," Rosa gasped. "And he's going to move the mayor," Darius said grimly. "We just lost our element of surprise." The next morning, Riverton woke to hysteria. News leaked that the mayor's disappearance was linked to criminal factions. Protesters filled the streets, demanding answers. And Morrow seized the narrative. Standing before cameras, he declared, "This city cannot afford weak leadership. Until Mayor Grant is returned, I am assuming operational control of the department. Chief Cole has failed us." It was a coup in all but name. Inside his office, Darius slammed his fist against the desk. "He's consolidating power. If we don't act now, he'll bury everything." Rosa laid a hand on his shoulder. "Then we go bigger. We take the evidence public." Darius hesitated. "If we misstep, the whole city could erupt. But if we stay quiet, Riverton is lost." That evening, Darius agreed to meet with a coalition of community leaders at a church basement. The mood was tense, the air thick with frustration. "You promised change, Chief Cole," one elder said sharply. "But now our mayor is gone, and the department's at war with itself. What are you doing about it? Darius stood, shoulders heavy but voice resolute. What I'm doing, he said, is fighting a machine bigger than any one of us. But I can't win this fight alone. If you want justice, if you want this city back, I need you with me. Not as protesters but as witnesses. As truth-tellers. They can silence one man. They can't silence all of us. The room fell silent. Then, slowly, heads began to nod. The community was with him. Back at headquarters, Rosa intercepted a secure communication between Morrow and one of the businessmen. It contained coordinates, an abandoned airstrip outside the city. They're moving the mayor tonight, Rosa whispered urgently. If we don't stop it now, she'll be gone forever. Darius's blood ran cold. This was their only shot. But as he gathered his team, alarms suddenly blared inside the station. Officers flooded the halls. What's happening? Darius demanded. A young officer shouted, Chief Cole, you're under arrest. Orders from Deputy Chief Morrow, conspiracy, obstruction, aiding criminal networks. In stunned silence, Darius felt cold steel clamp around his wrists. His own officers, some reluctant, some eager, were taking him into custody. Rosa's eyes locked with his as chaos swirled. She mouthed silently, I'll get her. Hold on. As Darius was led out of headquarters in handcuffs, flashbulbs exploded. Reporters shouted questions. Protesters screamed his name. And on every TV screen in Riverton, Franklin Morrow appeared, calm and collected, declaring, the mayor will be found. Order will be restored. And the false chief who betrayed this city will face justice. Darius lifted his chin, refusing to bow his head. He knew the truth. And he knew Rosa was still out there, chasing the mayor's trail. But with his badge stripped, his freedom gone and the city on the brink, how could he fight back? The metallic clank of the cell door echoed like a verdict. Darius Cole sat on the narrow bench, wrists raw from the cuffs that had only just been removed. The stone walls of the holding block pressed in around him. It was almost poetic, he thought grimly. The man arrested in the street for being poor and suspicious was now the chief of police, locked in his own jail by corrupt hands. But this time he wasn't powerless. Across town, Rosa Delgado gripped the steering wheel so hard her knuckles ached. The coordinates from Morrow's message were burned into her mind, the abandoned airstrip on the outskirts. She knew she was alone now. With Darius in custody, Morrow had eyes everywhere. Any call for backup could expose her. Hold on, Madam Mayor, she whispered. I'm coming. Her headlights cut through the mist as the outline of rusting hangars emerged. She killed the engine, slipped her sidearm from its holster, and moved like a shadow through the weeds. From a distance she spotted them, black SUVs, armed guards, and in the middle, a private jet humming on standby. And being dragged toward it, Mayor Evelyn Grant, still bound, her steps faltering. Rosa's pulse thundered. She hit record on her phone. If she didn't make it out, at least the truth would. Back in the cell, Darius closed his eyes and thought. Panic was useless. Morrow wanted him humiliated, not disappeared, at least not yet. That meant he still had leverage. Guard, he called, his voice steady. A young officer approached reluctantly. Darius studied him, nervous, uncertain, not yet hardened by corruption. You believe in the badge? Darius asked quietly. The officer shifted. Chief, they say you betrayed us. That you're part of this. Look at me, Darius interrupted. You've seen how I lead. Do I look like a man who'd sell out this city? The officer hesitated, then shook his head. Then help me, Darius said. Everything Morrow told you is a lie. The mayor's life depends on us. Let me make a call. Just one. The young man's Adam's apple bobbed. Finally, he unlocked the cell phone at his belt and slid it through the bars. 5 minutes, he whispered. Darius dialed the only number he trusted. Pastor Elijah Brooks, the community leader who'd once doubted him but had pledged his support. Elijah, Darius said urgently, they've got the mayor at the airstrip. Rosa's there alone. And Morrow's about to sell this city to the highest bidder. Get the people out there. Cameras, witnesses, everything. If the system won't protect us, the people will. Rosa crouched behind a crate, heart pounding as she watched Morrow step out of his SUV. His polished shoes gleamed under the floodlights, his arrogance unmistakable. Load her up, he ordered, gesturing at Mayor Grant. The mayor's voice, hoarse but defiant, rang out. You'll never get away with this. Morrow leaned close, smirking. I already have. Rosa raised her phone, capturing every word. But when she shifted for a better angle, her boots scraped gravel. Over there, a guard shouted. Spotlights flared. Guns swiveled. Rosa bolted, sprinting toward the hangar. Bullets pinged against metal, sparks flying. She dove behind cover, gasping. Then in the distance, a roar of voices. Dozens, maybe hundreds. She risked a glance. Down the dirt road, headlights stretched in a line. Cars, vans, even bicycles. And behind them, people on foot, community members led by Pastor Elijah, cameras raised, chanting. Justice for Riverton. Justice for Riverton. Morrow's face blanched. Shut them down, he barked. But it was too late. The people surged forward, unarmed but unyielding, phones filming every moment. At that exact moment, a second convoy approached from the opposite side. Police cruisers, lights flashing, not under Morrow's orders but under Sergeant Malik Johnson, who had freed Darius after the young guards smuggled him out. Darius stepped from the lead car, shoulders squared, eyes blazing. "Morrow," he shouted across the tarmac. "It ends tonight." The crowd erupted in cheers. Cameras pivoted. Every lens was now trained on the showdown. Morrow sneered, but Darius saw the flicker of fear in his eyes. "You think you can rally a mob and call it justice?" Morrow spat. "I've got half this department behind me. And I've got the truth," Darius shot back. He gestured to Rosa, who emerged from cover, phone held high. "Every word you said to the mayor, it's recorded. Every dollar you laundered, it's traced. The people know. The world knows." For the first time, Morrow faltered. His men exchanged uneasy looks. Some lowered their weapons, unwilling to fire into a sea of citizens recording them live. You think this changes anything?" Morrow stammered. "I built this department. I built this city." "No," Darius said, voice carrying across the field. "You poisoned it. And now Riverton is taking it back." The crowd roared. With cameras rolling, Mayor Grant, though bound, lifted her chin and declared, "I hereby order the immediate suspension of Deputy Chief Franklin Morrow, pending federal investigation." Officers rushed forward. This time not to protect him, but to cuff him. Morrow fought, shouting curses, but the tide had turned. He was dragged away, his empire collapsing around him. Hours later, the sun rose over Riverton. The mayor, now safe and recovering, addressed the press alongside Darius. "Corruption tried to silence us," she said. "But thanks to Chief Cole, Sergeant Delgado, and the brave citizens of this city, truth prevailed. From this day forward, Riverton will be rebuilt on accountability." Darius stepped to the podium, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "This badge isn't power. It's responsibility. And every person wearing it will answer to the people. I was arrested once just for being a poor man in the wrong place. I became chief to make sure no one else has to live that story. And I promise you, I will not stop fighting until justice belongs to all of us." The crowd erupted in thunderous applause. Riverton was not perfect. Change never came overnight. But the cracks in the old system were closing, filled with something stronger: unity. Mayor Grant established an independent oversight board. Rosa was promoted to captain, her work against corruption celebrated. Malik took command of internal affairs, ensuring accountability from within. And Darius? He continued walking the streets, not as a distant chief, but as a visible presence. Children waved to him. Elders clasped his hand. Even skeptics slowly admitted, Riverton had a chance. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Darius paused outside the same diner where, months earlier, he had been mistaken for a vagrant. The same officer who had once cuffed him passed by. Their eyes met. For a moment, silence. Then awkwardly the officer nodded. "Evening, Chief." Darius returned the nod. "Evening, officer." It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. He turned toward the city skyline, lights flickering like stars against the night. Riverton had nearly broken under corruption. But it had also shown him something unshakable. When people stand together, truth can't be buried. And as long as he wore the badge, Darius Cole would make sure of it. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up, subscribe, share, and tell us what you think.